Bismillah. So we just wanted to reflect about the commemorating Badr. And Badr is the name of a great union between two forces, two armies that were representative, and they were archetypes for truth and falsehood, reality and falsity. And the implication to what took place at Badr still resonates now. So the reason why it's significant, and the reason why it's the most utmost importance, and it was a tradition to commemorate and recognize the importance of this sacred engagement, is because through it we're Muslim. Because of it we have Iman, and we're able to fast, and we're able to pray, and we're able to have these connections to Allah, to His Prophet ﷺ, to each other. Every relationship you've ever had, every connection that you've ever had, every good feeling that you've ever had when looking at the Kaaba, or meeting one of the Salihin, or engaging with the Quran when the heart opens up, all of that ultimately comes back to the result of what took place at Badr. The obligation to fast, the legislation came for the fasting of the month of Ramadan in the second year of the hijrah of the Prophet ﷺ. So the second year after migrating to Madinatul Munawwara. And this was also the same year in which Badr took place. So if you understand the context, the first year of fasting, a group of, effectively converts to Islam, and they sacrificed and left everything. Many of them, they were extradited and thrown out of their hometown where they grew up, and that which they knew, and the customs, and they were thrown out. Some of them had their wealth stolen, reappropriated, and some of them, they were under such stringent circumstances that they weren't able to recover what they left. They didn't even pack up. You say pack up and leave, they didn't even have the opportunity to pack up. They just left. But because these were a unique people, and these were a people that were ultimately chosen in pre-eternal destiny, in the divine will, to be those people that were the vessels to hold this reality, this tradition, this Iman. And they say that even when they came back to Mecca years later, that such was their spiritual training, and such was their insight into the realities of their own souls, that they wouldn't even look at the houses that they left behind. So one of the Sahaba, they'd go past their old house and they wouldn't look. Why? Why wouldn't you look at your old house? Because they left that for Allah and His Prophet ﷺ. So even looking at it, they didn't want to take any reminder or any pleasure. Oh, this is where I used to live, and this is where I left this for Allah and His Messenger. And it's okay now. You can, the times have changed. They would just walk by. This was their spiritual training. People that knew what sacrifice meant, and when they sacrificed, they did it for the right reasons, and they did it in the right way. And that's why they were rewarded with that which they were rewarded with. So it took place on the 17th of Ramadan. The 17th of Ramadan, the first year of fasting for the Muslims. And only 2 years. So 2 years is no time to settle in a place. You've got all these subtle contextual realities have to be meditated over. Have to think about these things. 2 years to up sticks and start off again, with the inherent challenges. that they'd been ostracized, and this is after years of persecution in Mecca, seeing people, we term now religious persecution, people that were just tortured. Not only zero tolerance, but active enmity towards those early believers. That's what they had to deal with. That was a daily reality for them. Seeking knowledge, learning the deen, they had to do and go out in secret. What kind of iman did these people have? Under the sure death or at very least some form of torture, they would go out and they would seek truth. So, where do we place truth in our priorities, in that which how much would we sacrifice for that which is real? There are so many lessons in this miraculous part of the sirah. There are so many things which took place which were khariq al-'ada, just went against normative physics in the way Allah normally does things, to point us towards the significance of what happens to our peoples when they're true and they're real and they're sincere with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they did everything for love of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the engagement at Badr wasn't a 6-month strategic plan. It wasn't something that had been thought out, so to speak. But it was divine destiny. And the way it worked out is because when the Quraysh came back, the Muslims came to get back their rightful wealth from Abu Sufyan when he was coming back from Greater Syria, from Sham, and he fled, and he went back to Mecca, and he told the various leaders who all had some form of wealth within the caravan of Abu Sufyan that the Muslims are trying to get back their wealth, and we're now to we should attack them to reclaim. And this was after a series of, you could say, skirmishes. It didn't really end up in full battles, but Ghazwat Badr al-Kubra, the Battle of Badr, is a difference between a Ghazwa is that which the Prophet ﷺ was present in. Sirah is that which the Prophet ﷺ ordered to take place but wasn't there in person. So the context was also that if you look at the nature of the armies, they say that the Muslims were between 313 and 319 people when they gathered together. And the Quraysh, the Prophet ﷺ asked a person who was not able to, he came from that side, he was a slave, and he said, how many are there? And he said, I don't know. I mean, he wasn't able to count. And the Prophet ﷺ, because of his strategic acumen, he said, how much do they eat? And he named this, and he said, there are roughly 1,000 men. By how many camels that they would eat, the Prophet ﷺ would know. He said, there are roughly 1,000 men, and they were roughly 1,000 men. The preparation of the Quraysh was to intoxicate themselves. That's the nature of people that do things for the world. They're so engrossed and intoxicated in the world. You draw your meded and your sustenance from the world, and you want the world to be your ends. So they parked up for around 3 days to feast and party and sing. And for them it was a kind of they didn't take it seriously, because the Muslims were not at that time someone to be taken seriously. Antum adilla. You're marginalized, you're small, you're lowly, from the perspective of the materialistic eye, and the eye which only sees superficial things. But the one that's with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those physics completely change. لقد نصركم الله ببدر وأنتم أذلة. Allah He gave you victory at Badr and you're adhillah, you're lowly in the sight of people. When Abu Jahl, who was the appointed general of the army of the disbelieving Quraysh, he sent a person to go forth, which was the custom at the time, also to bring round the troops to see how many people they were. And he said, how many of them are there? He said, around 300 people. And he scoffed. 300 or 1,000. This is no battle. Just capture them and we'll drag them back to Mecca. This is not a worthy fight. Who do these people think they are? And then the response of the man was, no, there's something else going on. Because no people go out with such a small number in such a state other than there's something else behind them. There's something else taking place. Like to a military strategist at the time of the Arabs, this was ludicrous. This was insane. It's like a suicide mission. You're not asking for victory here. And he, Abu Jahl, such was his arrogance, he scoffed at it once again. He said, we'll do it. So they feasted until the time for Badr came. And it took place just after duha, in the early morning. And the Sahaba were fasting. Often we complain about the struggles of fasting, and imagine one's adrenaline, imagine the apprehensions, the fears, the hopes. And you're fasting, so you're not necessarily at your best physical capacity. Literally fighting for your life. But they weren't fighting for their lives, they were fighting for al-haq. And the Sahaba set up in one row. And there were those slightly behind them. The mushrikeen obviously were far more. They had, rows of people. Amongst the Sahaba, between those 300 odd blessed Sahaba, they say there are around 8 swords. They had only 8 swords, and they were weak, probably made out of iron. They weren't strong swords. And all of the Quraysh were armed to the teeth. They had 2 horses, some say 3. Even on the way, the Prophet ﷺ was riding on the horse, and then he got down, and he was carrying it, and the Sahaba, the Prophet was leading the horse, and the Sahaba on the horse. Look at the adab of the Prophet, the humility. He said, Ya Rasulullah, you should really be sat here. He says, you're not any stronger than I am. I'm able to walk. And you're not in any more need of reward than I am. That was just his humility, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he carried the horse on the way there. The 2 or 3 horses. The rest were camels. You see, around 70 camels. As for the Quraysh, they had a full. They came out fully prepared, and they had everything that they needed. So what were the feelings of the Sahaba, that first year of fasting? After 2 years of, after that relocation, that blessed hijrah back to Medina to Munawwara, what was going through their hearts, what was going through their minds? And in the encampment, the Prophet ﷺ had trained them, was looking for them. Ashiru alayya ayyuhan nas. And all of the muhajirin would say, like, we're with you, we're with you, we're with you. Of course the muhajirin were with him. They gave up everything for him already. But the Prophet ﷺ wanted to see where was the iman of the Ansar. Because in the original bay'ah, in the original oath, that they were, contractually, they were bound to protect him as long as it doesn't go to their diyar, their homes. It doesn't go inside the vicinity of Medina. But outside of it, contractually, the Ansar were like. Now, Badr took place outside of Madinatul Munawwara. Badr is named after the wells which are there, which they say is named after a person. And some of them, they say, it's named after the shape, because it's like Badr means a full moon. So the Badr terms the full moon, like we've just experienced. It comes on the 13th, 14th and 15th of the lunar month. It's also a way that they would refer to someone that they loved or they revered. Someone who was Badr, they were like a chief in their peoples. They were prominent, has this prominence and this radiance. It's also one of the ways that frequently we refer to our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Some of them say that it's because of the clarity of the water, that when the full moon came, you'd see a perfect reflection within the water of the wells. All different opinions of why it was called Badr, those specific wells, where the battle took place by. And after the Sahaba perfectly conveyed their iman, we're with you, we're with you. Sallim ma shi'ta wa harib ma shi'ta. Fight who you will and be of peace with who you will. We're with you. You take from us or you leave our money behind, it's all yours. And that which you take from us is dearer to us. The money you take from our wealth, fi sabilillah, that's dearer to us. It's the Prophet, and they say the Prophet, after this beautiful speech, he said, smiled, so the Arabs say, as if his face was like a piece of the full moon. Meaning it just started to radiate of what the Prophet ﷺ witnessed in the hearts of the Ansar. That's what they'd ascended to, and that's what they'd. We witnessed that you're the Prophet of truth. This is Nabi Haq. This is real. It's not just about the contract that we had. We're with you. We're with you. Radiyallahu anhu. And the Prophet made the dua for the Ansar. Oh Allah, have mercy upon the Ansar and the children of the Ansar and the children of the children of the Ansar. The sign of Iman is love of the Ansar, the people of Medina. Who were the Ansar to? Who did they give victory to? Rasulullah. So a sign of love of the Ansar is a sign of Iman. And bughd or hatred, disdain for the Ansar is a sign of hypocrisy. So they're all lined up. Sayyidina Abdurrahman bin Auf, radiallahu anhu, when they were lining up, there were these two young boys, effectively around 15 years old, either side of him. He says, and then said, Uncle, where's that man that used to harm the Prophet? Can he yu'ti Rasulullah? Where's that man? And he looked at them and he said, I was fearful for them. Like, these guys are not going to stand. Like, in the world wars, you'd have people going up because they had a belief in something, that this was for a greater good. We're gonna, the conscription age was a particular age, but we're gonna draw on a moustache and try and pretend. And some of them would do that. They would stand on their tiptoes to appear taller because they wanted to defend the Prophet ﷺ. And such was the iman in the hearts of the youth of the Ansar, 15 years of age. And then they're obviously talking about Abu Jahl. And he said, if I see him, I'll point him out to you. Because he said, what's your business with him? Nothing, except I heard that he used to harm the Prophet. So he said, they'd never seen him. But just because they knew that he used to harm the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Mu'adh and Mu'awwidh, their names were two brothers. He said, if we find him, you'll see what we're going to do. And there were those from the mushrikeen, which narrated later, that they would look down upon from the mountain, they would see miraculous things. All of Badr was mu'jizat, the whole thing, filled with miracles. When the battle commenced, there'd be those the opposing army started to look very small in the sight of the Sahaba. You could say in English like an optical illusion, but it was an actual physical mu'jiza, a true miracle. And when the Quraysh would look to the Sahaba, to the Muslims, who were like 300 odd, it's as if there were loads of them. And the Prophet ﷺ, had, the Sahaba came to him, and previously they said to build they built for him an arish, which is a kind of a small kind of enclosement made out of, typically out of trees and so on and so forth, and small sticks, and it's like a simple, almost like a makeshift resting place, shelter. And he was there from the beginning, and with Abu Bakr guarding him. And that's when the Prophet started, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to engage and make dua, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Oh Allah, if you don't cause these people to win, if you don't cause this usba, this small group of people that we are, to win, you'll never be worshipped. This is the ultimate battle. Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum. And you would call, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum. Ya Hayyu, O source of all life, the ultimately living. Al-Qayyum, the one that causes everything, sustains everything, self-sustaining. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is independent of anything, doesn't need any of us. The Prophet would call upon these two names that some of the scholars would say is the names. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is called upon, He never refuses. Ismullah al-A'zam, the great supreme name of God. Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum. The Prophet was begging, calling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They say there were a few times until his shawl would fall off because of the munajah, the way he was calling upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Until Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq looked to him. And he took the shawl, put it back on the Prophet, and he came up behind him and he held his beloved sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says, Kafaka, he goes, it's enough, Ya Rasulullah. Like Allah will give you what He's promised you. Allah won't disappoint you. Like, you're easy on yourself, Ya Rasulullah. Abu Bakr's care for the Prophet. There's a battle going on. He just cares about his Habib. Just Abu Bakr. Sayyidina Ali, he said he came back because I fought, and then I came back and I found the Prophet in prostration, weeping, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum. And then I went back out and fought some more. I came back and I saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in prostration, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum. And I came back, third time, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he came out. It's erroneous to think people say, A'udhu Billah, the Prophet just stayed the whole time in the narration. No, he came out, but he was winning the battle of the realities of that battle, what took place, calling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's one of the great lessons of Badr. In victory, it's sought through brokenness before Allah, being broken before Allah, not claiming that you know all the answers, not by calculating everything, causality. We unfortunately we're in a state where it's close to almost like a devotion to causality. No, but Allah can only do this if this is the case. Allah can do what He wants. When did you put stipulations upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And that's why the hearts have grown dry. And, even the thought of miracles and miraculous things, that sounds like a far-fetched thing. Far-fetched for Allah that's created everything anyway to do. Ajeeb. Strange. But when the heart becomes conditioned with darkness and falsity and pride and arrogance and distraction, of course you're going to find those things hard. The heart becomes conditioned with dhikr, especially in the month of Ramadan, and patience, righteousness. These are all things, they weren't just things to do. Allah created us, told us, it lifts the do's and don'ts. Get on with it, and that's it. No. Everything which Allah has called us to do has a deep wisdom, has an effect on the soul. Tamam. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. Perhaps you might attain taqwa. Sayyidina Miqdad, he came to the Prophet, he said, Ya Rasulullah, my sword is broken. Because they were weak swords then. My sword's just smashed in half. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he grabbed a piece of like a stick, a piece of wood, firewood. Just took it. He goes, take this and fight with it. خُذْ وَقَاتِلْ بِهَا. They say he took it and he started to tremble out of like anticipation that this is what's going to give us victory now. I've got this from the prophets. He didn't think stick. We've got 1,000 people armed to the teeth and we had handed a piece of firewood. He started to tremble out of joy. Who were these people? They were people that knew the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They spent time with him. They looked to him. They just. And he takes it, and he was overjoyed. And then all of a sudden it turns into a sword. And he goes and he fights with it. And it passed on through the generations in his family. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you get backup from the malaika, yumuddukum, meded, which in its root word means military, support from the malaika, from the celestial realm. 5,000 of the malaika come down. They start fighting. And some of them would take on the form of the Sahaba, and the Sahaba would look to them and they said they looked kind of like us, but we knew they weren't like us. They even knew the mushrikeen that were killed by the malaika. They could differentiate them because the way things were cut. Until what took place is the mushrikeen were overpowered bi'idhnillah. And Allah reminds us in the Quran, it wasn't even the malaika, it wasn't even the angels that caused you victory. I'll give you 10,000 of them, but the only victory is min indillah. It's from Allah. So despite the so-called odds, the Muslims were given victory. But what's our understanding of victory as Muslims? It's just winning a battle, winning a fight. Is it like a domineering kind of totalitarian? That's not what the victory was. The victory was in truth, in the way that they did it, in the way that their approach, their methodology, in complete adherence to the Prophet ﷺ. That's what gave them victory. Because as we know what happened later on at Uhud, is that whole causality, and let's calculate, no, it's done now, and they broke away from the command of the Prophet ﷺ, and they were rebuked because they failed to listen to the Prophet ﷺ. Because of that sacrifice, 14 of the Sahaba lost their lives. But they gained a life which was very different than any other life. بَلْ هُمْ أَحْيَاء عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ. They're living, they're alive with Allah, they're alive with God, and they're provided for. What are they provided? What does Allah provide for them? What kind of rizq, what kind of sustenance does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward those people with? And there were 70 of the mushrikeen which were killed, from amongst them Abu Jahl. And in his arrogance, you've got to understand this. Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, who was petite in his stature, he came to Abu Jahl, who was huge, and he was down on the floor dying. Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, who the Prophet used to love listening to when he would recite the Quran. He said, let the one that wants to hear the Quran as fresh as if it's newly descended listen to Ibn Ma'bad, which means Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. He used to love listening to him. He used to carry the slippers, the sandals of the Prophet in his arms. That was his khidmah. And when he came to Abu Jahl, he was lying on the floor, dying. And Sayyidina, this is a huge warrior, Arab. Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Mas'ud was very petite in his stature, so he had to climb on top of his chest. He said, "You've climbed upon something big. You basically you little shepherd." That's what he said. You little ruwai al-ghanam, just some little shepherd boy. You've climbed on something great now. Just arrogance, even to the death. He looked at him, and he said he took his sword out, and Abu Jahl scoffed at his sword. He says, "Take my sword. If you want to cut my head now, take my sword." He goes, make sure you cut it from the lowest part of the neck, so when you stick it up, I can look down upon you. And tell Muhammad that I'm his enemy in this life and the next. Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, when he came back to the Prophet, the Prophet said, "Subhanallah." He goes, "The Pharaoh of my ummah was worse than the Pharaoh of Bani Israel." The Pharaoh of my ummah, Fir'aun ummati, was way worse. Everyone's tested in accordance to their reality. And in this was a subtle ishara, an allusion to where the Prophet ﷺ said that there are different types of pharaohs. There are pharaonic states. Just as in the Quran, we're called to, it's not an opportunity to see some historical events and point out those people that went wrong and scoff at those people that were misguided. They're there as lessons for you. You're also that person within you. As Rumi says, there's a hidden Pharaoh within you, and there's a hidden Nimrod. There's that call of the nafs, "Ana rabbukum al-a'la." I'm the real God. أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهُهُ هَوَى. Have you seen the one that takes his hawa, his passions, as God? So the defeat was won against that which was false, a blind materialism, which led to oppression and tyranny, against a complete attempt to obliterate light. Allahu mutimmu nurahu. Allah will complete His light. It's Allah's light. And for that reason, when they asked the Malaika, they said they are the greatest of the people of earth and the greatest people of the heavens. Those people that fought at Badr. The greatest of the malaika, the angels, fought at Badr, and the greatest of mankind also fought at Badr. And what this led to is, for the Quraysh, their wajaha and their kind of status amongst the Arabs in the entire region now was shattered. Because still people judged outwardly. You've been picked upon by these small group of people, and you're the Quraysh, you know. And what happened after that? This is the reality of any true martial combat, which is legislated by the sacred law, upon the methodology of the sacred law, in a context which is sound in the sacred law, then it's given tawfiq. And anybody that claims some form of militancy, like we see, people claiming things, you may have the flag, but you haven't got the heart, you haven't got the state, you haven't got the hal, you might have the state, the claim to the outward state. Where's the hal? There's no hal, there's no state of the heart. And the audacity to claim that those people are on that which the Sahaba are upon. A'udhu billah. These people were knights. What they did was honourable. What they did, was legislated, and what they did was in complete adherence to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the proof is what came after that. It's the Quraysh relented, and you have all of these openings which come after. But the Sahaba didn't go back, and how did they celebrate their victory? And that which was true, that which was real. They didn't go and party, or they went back into worship. Another day of fasting. Who are these people? After all of that, another day of fasting, khalas, till the end of the month. So, we commemorate this event, which is the most significant battle in human history in accordance to our belief. It's Yawm al-Furqan. It's the day of which ultimately distinguished truth from falsehood, belief from kufr. And as we started off by saying why that's meaningful to us, is because, well, none of us would be here. Many of us wouldn't have the names that we have were it not for that battle. Many of us wouldn't have the parents or the upbringing or the understanding or the experiences. All of those experiences. That's why we show gratitude and appreciation for those people's sacrifice. And as we know in our tradition, we're not peoples that are locked in the temporal. We're not veiled by time. Because although we count it, and it was over 1400 years ago, the reality is in accordance to our closeness to their attributes, that we mimic their realities, then we also have a closeness to them. Al-arwah junudun mujannada. So our souls can be close to their souls. And we can take on those attributes. It's as if in our current time it's even more of an incentive to relive these and to commemorate these things. Because we're so far, we've fallen so far from their reality. But it's so close also. So may Allah reward them with the greatest reward, the greatest recompense, and allow our hearts to be connected to those great people that sacrificed everything that they had, sacrificed their souls, sacrificed their wealth for the sake of what was real. And they didn't do it as a kind of in a vigilante charge of just, reckless, and heedless hawa. They did it completely following the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So may Allah connect us to them. And the Shaykh recommend that in this night that it's important that we try and repeat often the dua of the Prophet ﷺ, the way he called upon Allah, particularly in this night. Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum. So if any of us feel that we're being defeated, or we're in some kind of difficult place in our lives, or we're overwhelmed by challenges, we call upon Allah, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum, to give us victory. To give us victory over our own selves. That's the greatest jihad. And there's no meaning to any other jihad if it's not centered in a purification of the ego. Because then you're fighting for yourself. You're the God. And it has nothing to do with what's real. And we're in a time where there's so much confusion about these things. So much confusion. And the only way to go back is to follow the way of the Prophet ﷺ. And how do we do that? By following those people who are entrusted by him, and those people who entrusted other people, until the people of our time that were entrusted with the Senate to carry the light of real understanding, of true understanding of this tradition. So we're now well into the days of maghfirah. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, Ramadan, the first 10 days, awwalahu rahmah. The first part of it, the first phase is just an outpouring of divine mercy. And the mid part is maghfirah, is forgiveness. وَآخِرُهُ إِتْقٌ مِنَ النَّارِ. And is complete expediation from the hellfire, from Jahannam. And those things will have an effect on the person spiritually. Those breezes, Ramadan breezes which take place within this sacred season are going to have an effect on the soul. For those that engage with them. For those that are aware, so for those that are receptive. So may Allah connect us to those people of Badr in this life, and in the barzakh, in the akhirah, and in the Yawm al-Qiyamah. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow this gathering to be one which commemorates and remembers them with honor and with love. And may Allah allow us to truly understand the realities of what they did. And may Allah allow us to be truly appreciative, to appreciate them through the way that we speak, to appreciate them through the way that we act, to appreciate them through the way that we behave, by being like them, by people of akhlaq, people of character, people of sacrifice, people of beauty, people of truth. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, people of humility, people of brokenness before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in this challenge which has befallen the entire globe right now, we call upon Allah, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum, in that which you have gave the people of Badr victory over the darkness of kufr. Ya Allah, give us victory over ourselves, in spite of ourselves, because you are you, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum. And may Allah bless everyone for their attendance, and may Allah bless everyone for all of their works and accept everything that they've done this Ramadan. Now's the chance. Typically, in the midway point, people teeter on the edge, but now's the time the Prophet would go full throttle. He would really go for it. The month is coming to a close, and all of these spiritual breezes will soon pass us by. So may Allah connect us to the people of Badr and reward for them the greatest rewards. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Hadratul Nabi. Fatiha.